Now, for Camus and for Sartre, they're not as sophisticated as Heidegger, as we said, and not sophisticated as Merleau-Ponty, but they do rightly also address the nothingness as it appears in moods. Now, we're cutting a lot short, right? But for Sartre, nothingness does appear very starkly, not in any of the ways we've just mentioned. It comes to a person more starkly in the existential context of a mood, which are pre-conscious moods and they're pre-objective, right? So in other words, they're not really something we have as willed phenomena. They're just there as moods. And when everything's going well and dandy, right? Say you're a person that you can come back. Everything is going well in your life. You're feeling good. Everything's lucky, and you're doing even well materially and everything. But sometimes everybody can experience that there's this underlying feeling of dejection, or that malaise we talked about, right? A kind of a listlessness, and you don't know where it comes from or why it's even there. Some people have described it as saying, I feel apart from others. Whereas, other times I feel part of what they're doing. I feel part of my society, part of what's going on. But then I can feel apart from. I don't feel well. Everything is working. Everything's going okay. But there's times when I just don't feel engaged. I don't feel part of the world. And this is there when the existential is honed in on nothingness, making it more of a thing of a mood-based thing. Go to the next slide. And this opened up a lot of doors, right? Because Sartre isolated boredom as a huge nothingness in the existential sense. He also, like Heidegger, copying Heidegger, following Heidegger, he understood that anxiety, this mood of anxiety, not fear, but anxiety is also a kind of a conduit, right? Through which a feeling of nothingness and emptiness hits us. And it can merely slightly trip up a few people, but it can completely destabilize others. It affects people differently, based on their makeup. And this is not to say that he's talking about anything philosophically deep. He wanted to show you that nothingness here is coming in on a very banal, everyday level. Poets like T.S. Eliot and others have written about this, just going about. But you're going through the motions, you're going about, but there's no real sense of connectivity. Maybe Marcel Proust or whoever, Dostoevsky. This is a common theme in postmodern literature. So it's a mood of despair, a mood of anxiety that detaches you from sort of normal preoccupations. Why? What is it? Well, what it is these are the moments of the opening to nothingness. Because nothingness is a something, right? And it wants to draw your attention to itself. And on many levels, you're aware of it, but you're aware unconsciously of it. So loss, loneliness, right? Failure, rejection, all of the things that, look at America's even going through, right? All of this is opening you to the abyss. It's like the law of implosion, right? What do you do about it? What do extroverts do about it? Well, nothing, right? They don't know what to do. We see it now. Mobs are running in the streets, a lot to do with what we're talking about. Whenever America, a very anti-psychological country, is going to get aware of any of this stuff, I'm not holding my breath. I never do, right? About that, the answer could be probably never. But it doesn't change the fact that this is the fact. This is the truth. So out of that despair, don't you see then, something happens. Because you do something about it. Very few people want to sit in that despair. So that despair and that wind of nothingness spurs one to act in both authentic and inauthentic ways. And on some level, you act as a robot in which your true being isn't involved. Like, just to stay alive, you'll do what mom and dad are telling you to do. Hey, get up, let's go for a picnic, or let's play ball. And you go along with it, but you're kind of not engaged in all of that. Or other people, will react against it, by going to a class or actively trying to upgrade their life in some way so that they don't have this constant nagging feeling of emptiness, right? They might want to upgrade their life and be more active, which is a good thing, of course. that nothingness can press in on what you know, so that what the realm of what you know shrinks, and that's an uncanny and you know, discombobulating feeling, because our whole will is to know more. And in those moments where the delimit, remember we said we were delimited by an endless eternity and infinity of nothingness. Yeah, but that can sometimes, like I said, the law of implosion, push in on your limit. And as that limit contracts, it's like somebody pushing your skin from all sides. It's not, you know, it's like being in a wind tunnel or a G-force or you know, being at the bottom of the ocean. What do they call that? The bends, right? And you're not aware of this pressure, because you're always looking for the thing that's causing it. It's Donald Trump, right? You're looking for whatever, you know, is right at hand. Class struggle, right? The Russians. So, you know, but obviously there's something we're trying to always look at the broader here, right? Non-slave. Wait a minute, there's forces operating around you that you better know about, because then you'll have a better GPS system and a better compass than any of these nitwits running around. There are limits to reason, just like Hegel said. And there's an outside of that limit. And sometimes that outside is a living thing, right? And it can push you and push you like a balloon until you feel very constrained. And so these actions then, the nothingness is now giving rise to conscious willful action. Yeah, but that's what we said what Heidegger's basic theory is, right? So you feel these moods and you act upon them. You try to get rid of them. You don't try to understand them. You just try to get rid of them. But you don't realize is that these moods are part of you and will always be part of you. And that these moments when you're not really gelling with the world, that's okay. Because it might be that these moments of nothingness are letting us know about our inauthenticity, and that our compulsive social engagement isn't authentic. Right? But go to the next slide. We'll read from the psychologist Alfred Adler. He has a brilliant quote on the very things we're talking about. Could you read that, David, please? Save my voice.
Sure, yeah. Alfred Adler, he says, "We are not determined by our experiences, but are self-determined by the meaning we give to them. And when we take particular experiences as the basis of our future life, we are almost certain to be misguided to some degree. Meanings are not determined by situations. We determine ourselves by the meanings we ascribe to situations."
Yeah, and you'd be amazed at how little people know this. Absurdity. Meaning comes from without. Yeah, but does it? Because the modern age saw the death of religion, and it saw that science is just mostly a con game. Works good on a practical level to measure things and build bridges and you know, fix limbs and diseases. But look, on a philosophical level, there's nothing there. So in the delirium and the disorientation of the modern world, there was a new alignment taking place, a new zeitgeist. But this is the key, he's saying, as a psychologist, right? So, okay, say we accept for all time that that is in fact the equation, that meaning must come from within. Viktor Frankl, Erich Fromm, they've all said it. Otto Rank, as I said, his interest in the will to the future. What do you still have to achieve? Let me help you with that. Let's find some efficacious routes to what you want to achieve. And suddenly the person's like completely healed. Right? Suddenly there's a will to life, because the will to living is innate. It'll overcome the despair, right? But it was the despair that accompanied you to that place before it said, "I'll leave you here, mate." Right? It's something really weird is going on, right? The nothingness, like in the Tao Te Ching, make use of the space, right? And you will have the use of the window. Make use of the nothingness and the space, and you'll have the use of the bowl. What? Right? So the thing is, though, that say we accept that that equation is true, that meaning must come from within, then now we get to see why, you know, thanks to members, we get this far, because it had to be, we've been touching on it all the way through since the beginning, but now we get to it stated very explicitly. What is the result if that is impossible for people today? Any one person or any society? That it is impossible because of bad up parenting, the ultra feminization, the screwy politics. Look, it doesn't matter. Let's not go there. Let's just find out whether, because of the modern world, that the predictions of somebody like a Heidegger, and even a Nietzsche for that matter, and a Sartre and a Marcel and all of these people, comes true, where it actually is impossible. I mean, literally impossible for people to bring meaning from within. I'm just asking the question. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But the smart man needs, the wise man needs to see what's around the corner beyond the horizon. Demi Moore's face job gets 30,000 hits in the first fucking second. You and me and people like us, yeah, we got four likes, 1 share. Yeah, let's ask a question. What happens if this is the omega point? Socially as well as personally. Then Nietzsche fucking wins. Go to the next slide. So Fromm, right? He believed this was a problem. So now we touch on the existential psychologist, the humanist psychologist, just again a little bit spend on that because tease out their general theme. They were worried of what I've just said. You could call them Nietzscheans without the futility, without the nihilism. But you know something? They took up the subject and they were worried that this could be a widespread problem. Now, he said, when you feel, he had another little caveat, when you feel these feelings of nothingness and boredom, because nothingness is appearing to you as boredom. I told you it takes years to work this out, right? But one of the epiphenomena, one of the manifestations of the nothing is boredom, ennui, anomie, malaise, jadedness, feeling apart from, not a part of. What do you do, right? Well, he said as a psychologist, people repress it. And repression is just a fancy word for denial. So what you do is you deny these feelings of boredom. How do you do that? Take a look around. The fucking surfeit of stuff and distraction and entertainment and infotainment is how you do it. Hollyweird and everything, all the extravaganzas, all the endless distractions. Proving the point, because it's such a surfeit of it that when you ask the question, where did it all come from breakdancing to skateboarding to disco and I don't know what is it all about? The Fromms are saying, look, this is your escape from selfhood. This is your evasion of the boredom. Because boredom is a fact. We get the clients coming, and the moment that you hand them anything at all, they'll grab it. Not out of the love of the thing. Not out of the love of the thing. So is politics, is all of that nonsense, and all the other distractions, swatting balls on the golf course, whatever it may be, right? Is all of the stuff that we see that has a certain level of absurdity to it, if it's contextualized this way, then we see what it is. Now, you don't have to get into judgment of it because we all do it, and we also understand it philosophically. All this is about is understanding it, right? The 50 channels, the surf, the endless stimulation of the senses, and all the rest of it. We've got to be able to see it. That here is your robot, as Fromm said, would come, not the slave. Or as Aldous Huxley always said, the smiling depressive, the one who adores his servitude, will take on any tyranny as long as it helps you escape, as long as it's the carrot version, in which give me the bread and circuses. So another way that Fromm also noticed on the individual level, we've been hinting more socially here, but the individual then becomes depressed. Remember we saw the splitting man last time about how you can divide yourself into the social self and the authentic self that responds to nothingness and moods of despair and anxiety in a different way than the inauthentic man. Well, it's somewhat the same here. The depressed person doesn't want to feel, so he doesn't. He doesn't want to feel because he's afraid of the kind of feelings he will feel if he allows this feeling to surface. Right? Fromm stressed that this could become a mass phenomena as well, in which we no longer have individuals at all. You just have a completely medicated society in which it's nihilism again. Right? In other words, back to the whole thing. As Frankl and Fromm and others said, man cannot find meaning within himself. And he comes to rely then on entirely external meaning. And even then, it's of a tawdry political version or a comedic version. You know, he's not signing on for any deep meaning. And this is a problem then, because the meaning that he's signing on for, which is external, is also fleeting. It's also ephemeral. It's also episodic. It evaporates quickly, which means what? He becomes more and more addicted. He starts to protest his lot, becoming more and more affluent and parasitical on a society designed to feed him as a parasite. And then finally, the society itself becomes utterly parasitical. The whole thing, ruled by parasites, peopled by parasites. Socialism, I think, is the going term for it. The welfare state. No need for self-governance. And then when the big boots of the socialist state comes in, it doesn't feel oppressive to anybody. Right? A tyrant sitting down signing 40 draconian executive orders doesn't bother anybody. Just surf the channels. In fact, it's considered stabilizing. They're taking away my freedom. I love it. Because you're psychically, emotionally, and fucking spiritually exhausted. You know, partly from all the crap that you're into. It's exhausted you. We're not talking about subliminals. We're just talking about the mere extroversion of it, the hyper. So these Wilhelm Reiches then understood what was coming. He saw beyond, and Janov, they saw that it's an energy quotient problem. Right? They were existentialists to a degree, but in a different way. They understood that it's all about energy resources within. The chi, the prana, right? The life force, the bioenergy, the libido is waning because of you're into too many things. You haven't consolidated, so you're burning it off. And society is sucking it off you. So in the end, you're going to be emaciated of the very life force that is the essence of life, the essence of being. And once that depletes, you become more and more docile, more and more dependent on the medications, the stimulants, the gratification. Go to the next slide. So when you see these hordes screaming for reform, they're not. They're screaming for more aphrodisiacs, more gratification, more orgasms, right? It was provided by the parents, but as we correctly say, the nanny state is merely taking over for the unpleasure. See, Freud talked about the pleasure principle. Reich talked about the unpleasure principle. You forget about the reality principle. Fuck, who has that? If your erogenous zones as a baby wasn't stimulated, as they should be, because of some puritanical, nitwit, utterly screwball parents, oh dear, right? Because unfortunately, the equation for Reich is this: if it's not pleasure, it's unpleasure. So he's looking at these Oedipal stages totally differently. And he's going to realize that the person who has not been pleasured, whose erogenous zones are not stimulated, is an armored person who then goes out into the world to scream for the gratification that they never got at home. They get it from the nanny state, or they think they do. As I said, it's these temporary stimulants, right? Now, Circe was the system, the matriarch who turned men into pigs. But the thing is that the reverse is true as well. The pig can create a Circe to rule the pigs. Works either way, right? Either way, it's bad. And the only way to resolve this is like card 14 in the tarot. Find that access to the cauldron of life force within, of which martial arts, Tai Chi, these are the primary ways of the world, not the East or the West, or a combination of all of them, right? Is the primary way to do that. But any kind of meditation you can come up with, to really, I'll tell you meditation. Read Wilhelm Reich, read Arthur Janov, there's your meditation. They all did it for you, mate. You don't have to think it out. Right? But of course, we don't read those men because of modern education. So there's a lot of serpentine stuff here, right? So these Eckhart Tolles and all, who are the new gurus, they don't teach any of this. They're teaching the abstraction, the auto-hypnosis, the techniques of, and the quiet Gnostic idea that you're in a prison of the soul, helping you to remain dissociated and collectivized, right? Helping to foster that hatred of reality that was so important to existentialists like Marcel. You actually hate yourself and you hate reality. And therefore, if a false pleasure principle a la Herbert Marcuse and his gang can be presented to you, all the bells and whistles and the flashing lights of the world can be presented to you, the TV generation, the immersion, the virtual realities, right? You'll plunge in. You'll plunge in. They offer you the sadomasochistic, video games, which are very, very violent. So you can both kill others and it works like this. Otto Rank said that if I keep hearing about death and keep reading about obituaries and keep killing people on video games, I'm not dead. But it's born out of your feeling of the fear of death. But you allay the fear of death by saying, well, at least he died, not me. It's that primitive, folks. And it's been going on for many millenniums. Right? So the void within these protesters is nothing more, says Adler and Fromm and people like that. It's one version of deep envy, all caps, of other people who do better than they are. In fact, it's really, as I've said in my work, it's really envy of the genius types and the alphas from a lot of betas and less. That's what it really is, to get to the heart of it, right? No fucking cutting corners here. Those who are more physically, mentally, and psychically advanced, they envy those people. Those who are masculine, those who are wise, those who are strong, those who are, ambitious. So these people then want to become apostles of equality, and they'll follow the political parties that give them the feeling that they have that's their mandate, equality. All that means is equal in misery. Drag down those who are men of genius, right? In order to level off the alpha types. Karl Marx, it was under his work. It's concealed there under sort of affection for humanity and a whole bunch of talismanic terms that they're still using to this day. But the whole thing is fucking terminal, right? Because you know why? Because envy is not a virtue. It's a disease, and it can't lead to anything positive. And the one who's got this envy, like these protesters, they don't accept it, they don't know they've got it, and they're not going to heal it. Therefore, they remain sick, and they just continually sicken the culture that they're in. I'm going to take a short break maybe and come back with the last few, but never forget that there's this psychological underpinnings of the inferior type recasting themselves as superior. And then in that mode, a lot of them become political entities because it's already made, right? It's got the oars, the sail, the engine is already there. It's already prepared for you to come on board with a lot of others, collectivized, feminized, accusatory, envious, right? Malicious. Look at the paranoid. This Cortez and all her gang. Everybody's after them. Fuck, I wish somebody was after them. Some fucking ninja warrior ready to grab them by the fucking throat. But I'm waiting for implosion based on an actually accepted medical fact. If you're that schizoid, dissociated, what's the one? Multiple personality and paranoid, I would expect, right, that at some point it's going to be the rubber room time. So when do these guys ever, but see, now they take so much medication that they actually, can get away with it. They can actually be propped up for a while and carry on and on and on. There's nobody there to take them fucking down. But yeah, let's do comments when we come back, shall we? I need to turn the heaters on and stuff. So
yeah, go right ahead.
Give me a sec.